I'm going to tell you this story in scenes, like a play. I still was employed when I first noticed my problems with word capture. I was a web writer for a healthcare system in mid-Michigan. And so I was used to working on multiple projects, multitasking, being able to go from one project to another and coming back. And I've been a writer my entire life. I had a huge vocabulary. I knew exactly the words I wanted to use. When I start down to write, I knew exactly what word I wanted to use to start a story. And one day I noticed I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew the word I wanted to use, but my mind would not spit it out. I could see it on a mental marquee in my mind. I willed my mind to come up with it. It was there. It was there, but I couldn't put it from my mind to my fingers to the keyboard. Of course, when you're at work, you're on a deadline, and you can't just wait for epiphany to happen. So I had to come up with a lesser word, which for someone who writes for a living is not very gratifying. But I had to keep on deadline. But I kept noticing that this happened day after day after day. And I was so frustrated because I felt I was producing work less than what I wanted to produce. Well, fortunately, I did work for a healthcare system. And I became so upset that finally, in November of 2009, I went to see a geriatric psychiatrist. And he asked me some questions about my experience. And most noticeably, I said, I can't remember words that I want to use to start out. And it's very frustrating to me. And he did some testing, and he said, I really think you ought to go see a neuropsychiatrist and go through a 6-hour evaluation to see about your cognitive challenges. And then I also had an MRI prior to going to see the neuropsychiatrist. Well, I got to the neuropsychiatrist. This is a 6-hour test. I was sweating by the time I was done. Now, I knew I was going to flunk the math right away. I've never been good in math, ever. And spatially, I have trouble. I mean, I can visualize things in a room. I know when things look good. But if you ask me to draw anything, forget it. So when you're asked to look at an object, and then they take it away from you, and you're supposed to draw exactly what you remember, wasn't there. And these can be simple things like a house with a door. So I was sure I'd flunked this test. So my next appointment with the geriatric psychiatrist came in early January. And he said, I believe you have early stage Alzheimer's. And he put me on 2 drugs that are familiar for early stage Alzheimer's. I've been on them ever since. I don't know if they're doing me any good, but I'm not willing to take the risk. He said there is a clinical trial at Michigan State University. You might want to check this out. So I immediately went home, checked out the clinical trial, made an appointment. Then I found out that my partner had to go with me to every appointment. Well, my partner works full-time. So that means he has to take off, would have to take off a significant amount of time from work. But he said, I'm going to do it. So we went, and we were both interviewed separately, and they took blood work. And the clinician said, I'll be in touch with you. So about 4 weeks later, I get a call, and I carry the protein, APO4, that's carried on the gene for Alzheimer's. So I wasn't eligible for this clinical trial. And there were no other clinical trials at Michigan State that I was eligible for. So they said, well, maybe there's one at the University of Michigan that you can qualify for. So I went online, and yes, there was. And so I made an appointment, went to see the doctor, and filled out all this paperwork. Lo and behold, I found out I was going to pay for this clinical trial myself, and this was after I'd gotten enrolled and everything else. But I thought, well, guess I'm going to do it. So again, we had to, my partner had to go with me to every visit, except for the neuropsychiatric testing that I had to go through a second time. Well, actually, this was the third time. Because in the interim, I had gone to see a life coach. Because I thought, what am I going to do with my life? I'm a writer, and I'm trying to be a professional speaker. And I want to be able to speak and talk and have people understand me. Well, lo and behold, the life coach also had a clinical neuropsychiatrist on staff. So I said, I want to take the test. I've done it before. I can ace this one. Well, we went through the 6-hour test again. It was harder than before, harder than I remembered. But I thought, well, we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the life coach is trying to get me to think about what I can do with my life, because I am not ready to retire. I want to be productive. My life is about giving back to others and feeling that I am contributing in a positive way to uplifting other people. So then came the call from my life coach and the second clinical neuropsychiatrist, and they wanted to see both my partner and me. Uh-oh. So we went, and they said to us, we think you, meaning me, should apply for Social Security disability. Now, I was 58. I was not ready to apply for Social Security disability. But I thought, okay, I've got to have some lifeline. So I called up my friend who is a financial planner, but I kind of think of him as my adopted brother because I'm an only child. So I have no siblings. I have no one to talk to except my partner. And sometimes when you have this disease, you don't want to talk to anyone about it. And I said, okay, Jeff, if I go online and I fill out the forms and they say, yes, we'll consider you for Social Security disability, will you go with me to the interview? Now, this is not in his job description. He doesn't have to do this, but he says he will. If any of you have ever applied for Social Security disability, I want to tell you how much fun it is. My office has a credenza, and I had every scrap of paper for my work life, my personal life, my health, all spread out in front of me. You have an hour and 30 minutes, and it's timed in 20-minute segments. If you time out after 20 minutes, you have to start over. If I hadn't had all that paperwork out in front of me, and I didn't just chug through those questions, I would not have finished. I finished in 1 minute and 28 seconds, or 1 hour and 28 seconds. 2 minutes to spare. Yes, I did get accepted for Social Security disability, Jeff did go with me, and I got it.